An alien commander led her fleet into what she thought was a routine mission. But when her pride silenced a human's quiet warning, everything shattered. Ships vanished, lives were lost, and an ancient force emerged from the shadows, not to fight, but to judge. What do you do when the real enemy isn't out there? But within. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show your support with a thumbs up by liking the video. Now, let's jump into the story. The war between the old alien dynasties had turned the stars into battlegrounds. Fleets vanished, worlds turned to ash. In the middle of it all, Commander Naora stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Irrigan, her dark armor shining under the glow of the control lights. Her reputation as a fierce and undefeated leader was known across the galaxies. Her voice could silence a room, and her orders had led to countless victories. But on this day, she was not alone. Behind her stood Milo Dent, a human advisor assigned after a shaky peace agreement. To Naora, Milo was a mystery. He didn't shout. He didn't push for control. He simply observed, always calm, always watching. His presence irritated her. Humans, she believed, were too soft, too slow to fight, too quick to hesitate. Yet, he had been there through her last 3 missions, quietly offering input that was never taken seriously. Today would be no different. Or so she thought. As her officers mapped their route through a territory known as the Echo Rift. Milo stepped forward, his voice quiet but clear. "Don't take the fleet there," he said. "It's not safe." Naora turned, her eyes cold. "The Echo Rift has been under our control for cycles. I've led missions through it more times than I can count. I know it better than you know your own ship." "I believe you," Milo replied gently. "But that's exactly why they'll expect you to go there." The bridge grew quiet. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Naora's second-in-command, Vicar, shifted but said nothing. The commander's jaw tightened. "You think our enemies are that clever?" Milo didn't flinch. "I think they've studied you. Your confidence is their weapon." Naora laughed, a short, sharp sound. "A human talking about strategy? How many wars have your people won?" Milo looked straight at her. "Enough to know that sometimes the most dangerous thing on a battlefield is pride." She waved her hand. "Prepare the jump. We enter the Echo Rift at full formation." The fleet moved as ordered. Dozens of warships sliced through space, their engines glowing like distant stars. At first, everything was calm, silent, even. The stars around them looked the same as always, empty and still. But Milo stood stiffly by the navigation console, his eyes locked on the readings. "Now," he whispered. Without warning, the sky erupted. Energy bursts exploded across the fleet. Ships vanished into flames before they could scream. One cruiser spun out of control, its systems crippled in seconds. The radio crackled with chaos. Engines failing. Shields offline. "We're trapped." "They're jamming us," shouted Vicar. Milo moved to the main console, analyzing the signals. "It's not a regular attack. It's a net. They've locked you in a trap. You walked right into it." Naora's face paled. "How?" "Because they know you," Milo said softly. "They knew you'd charge in without listening." On the outer flank, the Talgar, one of Naora's most powerful ships, was being torn apart. "Permission to retreat," the pilot screamed through static. Naora froze. She had never given that order. Not once. She stood frozen as the Talgar exploded, taking 400 lives with it. Milo stepped beside her. "Pride won't shield them. Let the others go before more are lost." The command deck was silent, every eye on her. After a moment it felt like forever. She whispered, "Fall back, get us out." The surviving ships limped away from the rift, damaged and defeated. Behind them, the darkness of space remained still, almost mocking. That night, Naora sat alone in her chamber. She was not used to silence. Victory had always been loud. Now, all she heard was the faint hum of dying engines and the memory of Milo's voice. The door slid open. Milo entered without asking. He didn't stand tall or proud. He simply waited. She turned to him. "You didn't come to say, 'I told you so,' did you?" "No," he said. "I came to offer you another warning," she scoffed. "I don't need more of your careful words." He walked to the table and placed a small chip down. "Then don't listen to the words. Look at the data." She picked it up slowly. "What is it?" "Proof that your enemies knew your plan. Someone on your council leaked it." Naora stared at the chip, her hand trembling slightly. "Why? Are you helping me?" "You're human." Milo's voice was steady. "Because if your people fall, mine are next. And because I've seen leaders fall the same way, ignoring warnings, dying alone." She looked away, ashamed and angry, but she didn't argue. Not this time that the war wasn't over. But for Naora, something deeper had changed. She had faced defeat. And now, perhaps for the first time, she was ready to face truth. The silence of retreat hung heavy over the fleet. Warships once filled with thunder and pride now floated quietly in the shadows of space. Repairs were slow. The crew moved carefully, whispering more than speaking. Commander Naora stood by the window of the Irakan, watching sparks fly from the hulls of her damaged ships. Her eyes were tired. Her pride still stung. She had never lost like this before, never doubted her decisions, never questioned her path until... Now, behind her, Milo Dent entered the command chamber. He didn't salute. He simply stood, waiting. Naora spoke first. "The crew avoids me." "They're scared," Milo replied. "Not just of the enemy, but of what's coming next." She turned to face him. "I led them into a trap. I won't let it happen again." Milo nodded. "Then you'll need to know who set the trap." That night, a quiet officer named Saren came to Milo with something strange. She was part of the fleet's signal analysis team. Saren rarely spoke unless necessary. But what she carried couldn't wait. "I found something in the data logs from the Echo Rift," she said, placing a small storage drive on Milo's desk. He opened it carefully, scrolling through patterns, frequencies, and codes. One signal stood out, something buried deep in the static of the enemy's attack. It wasn't random. It was structured, timed like a heartbeat. A pattern no natural force would leave behind. Milo leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "It's not just an ambush," he muttered. "It was a setup. Someone knew we were coming. This wasn't just a military trap. It was orchestrated." The Siren nodded. "The signal. It doesn't match the enemy's usual tech, but it matches something else. Our own." The words chilled the room. Milo turned slowly toward her. "You're saying someone from our side helped them?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, and I think it came from High Command." The next morning, Milo brought the findings to Naora. She sat in the strategy room, surrounded by dim screens and half-lit star maps. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he placed the drive in front of her. This was in the fleet's own logs. Saren found it. The enemy didn't just predict your path. They were fed your plan. Naora stared at the screen. Lines of data blinked, showing timestamps and security keys that only top council members would know. Her fingers hovered over the console, then dropped. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "Why would someone in my own empire betray us?" Milo spoke softly. "Because sometimes fear leads people to do terrible things. Maybe someone thought working with the enemy would end the war sooner. Or maybe they feared what you might do if they didn't control you. She didn't reply. Her mind was racing. Images of her last meeting with Admiral Cohn flashed through her thoughts. His odd tone, his unwillingness to share intel. Was this the reason? Later that evening, as the crew worked in silence, Naora summoned her second-in-command, Vicar. He entered, standing tall but uneasy. "Do you trust me?" she asked without looking at him. "I've followed you through every battle," he said carefully. "That wasn't my question." He paused. "I do. But I also see what the others see. Something is wrong." She nodded slowly. "Good. That means you're still thinking." Naora turned to Milo, who had remained silent during the exchange. "What do we do now?" Milo pulled up a map of their fleet's location. "We're not just running from an enemy. We're being watched. Something out there is measuring our choices, judging them." Naora raised an eyebrow. "Watched by who?" "Not who," Milo said. "What?" He zoomed in on a section of space just beyond the Echo Rift. A strange shape hovered there, something massive, cloaked and silent. The ships had picked it up only for a moment before it disappeared again. No heat, no communication. Just a shape in the void. "It's been following us," Milo continued. "But it never attacks. It just watches." Naora studied the image. A chill crept through her chest. "Is it enemy technology?" "I don't think so. It's older. Maybe far older. And this isn't the first time I've seen signs of it. There are rumors from other fleets once that disappeared without a trace." She turned toward him. "So we're caught between a war we no longer understand and a force we can't even define." Milo nodded. "Yes, and now we have to decide who we really are. Warriors? Survivors? Or something else entirely?" That night, the Irrigan drifted. In a quiet corner of space. The crew moved slowly, eyes filled with questions no one could answer. Naora stood alone on the observation deck, her reflection dim against the stars. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about her next battle. She was thinking about everything she didn't know. Behind her, Milo stepped forward. "You were right about one thing," she said without turning. "I led them into a trap." "You saw what they couldn't," Milo replied. "Now, it's your chance to lead them out." Naora closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered, "Then let's find the truth. Before it finds us." The fleet hovered near the edge of a fading star system. Half its ships scarred from the disaster at the Echo Rift. Repairs were underway, but the deeper damage couldn't be seen. It was in the crew's hearts, their doubt, their fear, and the quiet, growing belief that their leader had failed them. Commander Naora walked through her own ship like a shadow, once feared and admired, now watched in silence. No one challenged her openly, but whispers followed her like ghosts. The question wasn't spoken, but everyone thought it. Who should lead them now? On the command deck, Milo Dent stood over a map filled with flickering signals. One stood out, strange shape on the very edge of detection. It hadn't moved. It hadn't spoken. But it had been there, watching. Saren, the quiet signal analyst, stepped up beside him. "Same as yesterday," she said. "It's still there." Milo didn't look up. "It wants us to know that." Just then, a loud alarm screamed across the ship. All officers turned toward the main screen. One of the support cruisers, the Naran, had exploded without warning. There had been no signal, no enemy ship, just a silent pulse, then fire. The room filled with shouts and urgent commands. Naora rushed to the bridge, her face pale, her voice sharp. "Report! No external attack," Saren said quickly. "The ship just failed. Systems shut down. Then it detonated." Milo stepped forward, eyes on the data. It wasn't an accident. It was a message. The bridge fell silent. Everyone waited. A test, Milo said. "It's watching how we respond." "Then we hit back," Naora snapped. "Target the source." Milo shook his head. "That's what it wants. An emotional move. We strike now, we lose again. But if we act broken, maybe it believes us." The room stared at him, unsure. "We shut down non-essential systems," he continued. "Dim the lights, stall communication, make the fleet look weak, like it's barely hanging on. Meanwhile, we send 2 scouts in a different direction, fully powered, hidden under energy masking. They'll get close enough to scan that thing." "You want to trick it?" Naora asked. "No," Milo replied. "I want it to believe we're not worth finishing." While it watches one hand, the other hand holds the knife. The officers looked to Naora. Her eyes studied Milo. Then, finally, she nodded. "Do it." The plan was set. Lights across the fleet dimmed. Engines slowed. Communications grew quiet. The ships drifted like injured animals. Inside, the crew played their parts, pretending systems were failing. Outside, the 2 scout ships Vera and Sullen moved like whispers through the void. Past, the silent shape in the dark began to move, gliding toward the fleet like a shadow across water. It came close, so close they could see its strange surface black, like nothing they'd ever seen, shifting slightly like liquid metal. Still, it didn't attack. It hovered. "Now," Milo whispered. The scouts activated their scans. Data poured into the command center. Heat patterns, signal emissions, internal rhythms. Milo's fingers moved quickly, saving everything. 40 seconds passed. Then the scouts turned back. "No response," Saren said. "It hasn't moved." Milo watched. "The screen. It's testing us." But we passed ... for now. Later that night, Naora stood alone in the strategy room. The fleet was still standing, but her confidence wasn't. She stared at the black shape captured in the scans. "What are you?" she whispered. Milo entered. Quietly, she didn't turn to face him. "You fought without firing a shot today," she said. He stopped beside her. "Not all battles are won with weapons." She looked at him, her eyes tired but curious. "And what kind of battle was this?" "A test," he replied, "to see how we think, how we react. If we're worth destroying, or worth observing." "Do you think we passed?" "We bought time." Naora fell silent. Then softly, "Teach me." Milo looked at her, surprised. She nodded once. "I'm tired of being strong and wrong. Show me how to survive differently." Over the next few days, things changed. Milo started meeting with the senior officers. No weapons, no drills, just questions. What if all power failed? What if the enemy controlled their thoughts? What if retreat was the only way to survive? At first, the warriors scoffed. This wasn't how they were trained. They were bred for combat, not puzzles. But slowly, something shifted. They started thinking, not just reacting. Taren, a young pilot who had once idolized Naora, asked Milo quietly, "What are you trying to teach us?" Milo smiled. "To stop acting like we can control everything and start preparing for what we can't." Meanwhile, Saren discovered a new message embedded in the earlier data, a voice this time, speaking in their own language. It echoed through every ship in the fleet. "You are adapting. Good. Let us see how far you'll go. Before you break." Before anyone could react, another ship exploded. The test had just begun. The fleet floated in uneasy silence. After the second ship vanished, fear settled deep into every corner of the ships, like smoke that refused to clear. There had been no attack, no warning, no explosion this time, just darkness. One moment the ship had been there, and the next it was gone, as if swallowed by space itself. On board the Irrigan, Commander Naora stood before her crew, her voice calm, but her heart pounding. Every eye watched her. Every breath held doubt. Once they had followed her into fire without question. Now they needed something more than orders. They needed truth. In the shadows of the command room, Milo Dent moved quietly between consoles, analyzing the latest scans. Nothing made sense. The enemy didn't follow patterns of war. It didn't destroy for territory. It didn't demand surrender. It simply watched, judged, reacted, and when it did, people died without knowing why. Seren, the signal analyst, approached him with a message decoded from the observer. It wasn't an attack plan. It was a challenge. One line repeated in every ship's data system. Show us who you are. Milo frowned. It wants us to reveal ourselves, not just our strength, our truth. Meanwhile, Naora was alone in her private quarters, staring at an old message she had never dared open. It was from her mentor, General Vaxon, the man who had trained her, guided her, then disappeared just before the wars began. She had always believed he died with honor. But now, the truth waited on a single data chip. When she finally activated it, his voice echoed softly through the room. If you're seeing this, I've failed. We thought we could control fear by creating enemies. We started wars to unite our people. But in doing so, we woke something ancient, something that watches from the dark. It does not kill with anger, but with disappointment. It tests leaders. I failed mine. Now you must face yours. Naora felt her hands tremble. Her pride, her victories, her losses, they had all come from a system built on lies. She went to Milo without hesitation. It was all fake, she said. The wars, the fear, the enemies. It was all made up to keep control. We did this, not them. Milo nodded. Then tell them. The next morning, she stood before the fleet's command council. The message from Vaxon played for all to hear. Faces turned pale. Officers whispered. Some were angry, others ashamed. But none could deny the truth anymore. We've been fighting. A shadow we created, Naora said, her voice steady. And now something real has come to judge us, not with guns, with questions, and it's up to us to answer them honestly. The observer returned that same night. Its dark, silent shape hovered just beyond the main ship, closer than ever. It sent a single signal, one word, show. Naora and Milo stood side by side in the strategy room. They didn't launch weapons. They didn't call for shields. Instead, they activated the redemption signal. It was a full, unfiltered transmission, containing the hidden messages, the lies from the council, the truth about the war, and the words from Vaxon. It was sent out across the stars, to allies, enemies, and unknown listeners. It was not a surrender. It was a confession. At first, there was nothing. No reply. No movement. Just the steady hum of systems and the sound of breathing. Then the observer's surface shimmered. Lights flickered, not in a threatening pattern, but in rhythm. On every screen, images appeared. Civilizations, great and proud, all gone. One by one, they showed their rise and their fall. Not from enemies, from within. From repeating the same mistakes, then came an image none of them expected, their own fleet fading away in silence. Milo stared at it with quiet recognition. It doesn't destroy, he said. It lets you destroy yourselves. Naora stepped forward. Then we choose differently. The observer didn't speak. It simply turned and disappeared into the dark. The test was over. They had passed. The fleet remained quiet for a long time, no one daring to speak. Then, one by one, the crew returned to their posts. They didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. But something had changed. Something real. Days later, Naora stood on the bridge, watching peaceful stars blink beyond the glass. Milo joined her, a quiet presence as always. "You did it," he said. She shook her head. "No, we did it. You helped me unlearn everything. I was raised to believe." He smiled. "That's harder than fighting a war." She turned to him. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, "we help others do the same." And somewhere, deep in space, the observer watched, not as a judge, but as a witness to change. The fleet no longer prepared for war. They prepared for truth. And for the first time in a long time, they were no longer just survivors. They were something more. They were awake.